Can't believe I'm actually going to try to do this, but here it is. The Allies Hot Takes tier list taken from the Thunder Dominion polls on Dominion Discord. So what this is a group of about 30 to 40 people all voted to rank the cards from worst to best. We started with the best and the worst, and then we moved to the second best and the second worst, and on till we reached the middle. And we did this for the Kingdom cards first, and then the new Ally cards. And it was a bit chaotic. This was done like the first day that the cards were released, so with no time to get to know the cards. It took several days, so by the end, like people were more familiar with some of the cards. So it gets a little bit better in the second part, which was the allies. But I think like there are some pretty hot takes in this first cards list, and some stuff I very much disagree with. Originally, I was going to look for like testimonials from other people, but I got too lazy to do that. I'm just going to like try to do my best to comment on all of these cards as we go forward. And since they're new, I'm going to keep a tab open here where I can look at the cards. And let's go ahead and get started. There's a lot to get through, and I'm probably not going to get through it all in one go. We'll see. All right, so there are 31 Kingdom cards in the set. And the one that is ranked at the bottom, see if we can find it, is this one. Well, where is it? Here it is, Merchant Camp. So Merchant Camp, 3-cost action. It's a village. Well, it's really more of a necropolis. It gives a coin, and when you discard it from play, you can put it onto your deck. So it's kind of like you can have a necropolis every turn. And it seems like most people agreed that this wasn't that great of an effect, mostly because it really slows your deck down, even though you're getting a pretty useful effect out of it. Yeah, like it's kind of like you have a 4-card hand. I mean, not entirely, but since you can't draw even one card with it, I don't know. It's sort of like having a neutered hand every turn if you play Merchant Camp. I don't think it's really all that bad. I mean, I mean, it's a village if nothing else. So I'm not entirely sure like where I'd place it. Like that's kind of the tricky thing with doing this list. It's less of a tier list and more of just chaos. I'm gonna put it in C tier, which I think is fine. It's probably fine. Okay, I don't think like anyone would have too many problems with putting this at the bottom of the list, but I don't know. Maybe some people do. Next card was Gallieria. Let me see if I can find it. I might be pronouncing some of these wrong. They're still kind of new to me, and they're not. Some of them are words that I don't say very often. So Gallieria is 5-cost action plus 3 coins. And this turn, when you gain a card costing 3 or 4, you get plus buy. And I think this is pretty situational. One of the big problems with it is that you have to gain a card costing 3 or 4 to get the buy. It can't be just any card. So that's a little bit specific, I think. It's certainly not bad, I guess. But like one of the problems is it gives you plus 3 coin, so it allows you to afford more expensive cards, but then you have to buy cheaper stuff to get this effect. So I don't know. Like I certainly think it's not terrible. I mean, extra gains are good, but I think it's also a little bit limited and might actually be the worst card in the set. I'm not entirely sure about that one. I haven't had a game with it yet myself, but yeah, I can see why it's ranked low. I don't think I would necessarily put it any higher. Okay, what's next on the list here? Okay, here's the first one that I think is like drastically misranked, which is Sycophant. See if I can find it. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I think I am. 2-cost Liaison, first Liaison card. So it's plus action. You discard 3 cards, and if you discarded at least 1, plus 3 coins. If you have like a bad hand, this is not terrible. You can at least get 3 coin out of it, and it can combo with draw to X and stuff like that. So this is not an amazing top effect, but it is pretty useful in bad decks. But really, for me, the thing that makes Sycophant pretty good is this bottom effect. When you gain or trash this, you get +2 favors. And as it turns out, there's a lot of favors where you really only need, I don't know, 5 or 6 of them the whole game. Or if you can just like get a couple of Sycophants, you're set to go, basically. Or if you can trash them, you can get more favors. So it's a decent way of accumulating like the favors that you need throughout the game. Now here's the thing: I'd be here all day if I was trying to go over every one of these cards' interactions with the different allies, and I don't think that's really worth doing necessarily, at least not right now. But my experience has been that this card is quite good. Like it's not quite on the level of lackeys, but it has some similar stuff going on to lackeys, where you're gaining it just for this 2 favor bonus, and then you kind of use the effect just because it's there. It's quite a bit worse than lackeys, but that's not saying much. Lackeys is really strong. Yeah, Sycophant's nice. I think it fits in a lot of decks better than you're going to be expecting it to. And yeah, overall, just the fact that it gives extra favors on gain is pretty good. Like you can, for instance, you can open with it and have 3 favors right there at the start of the game. There you go. So yeah, pretty decent card overall. Let me go ahead and stick it. I'm going to put it in B tier for now. I'm probably going to be shifting some stuff around. I do think this card has been like egregiously misranked by the community, and I think everyone realized it after they actually played games with it. So we'll have to see about that one. See if I'm wrong in the long run. But I don't think I am. So next is a Courier. Here it is, Courier. So 4-cost action, plus coin, discard the top card of your deck, look through your discard pile. You can play an action or treasure from it. I have not played with this card yet. It seems okay to me. Like, I totally see why it's at the bottom. Yeah, I can't see this being anything other than okay. Obviously, if there's something good in your discard, this is a lot better. If there's nothing in your discard, then this card is basically useless. So you only want to be getting it if you're going to be putting things in your discard, or you're going to have, I guess, a cause to use it throughout the game. But, it's pretty nice to be able to play stuff from the discard. So I don't think it's bad at all. I think like C or B tier is fine for Courier. But I've got to put it above Sycophant, so I'll stick it in B tier. Oh my goodness. Oh, why the jump, you might ask? It's just because I think Sycophant is really good, and these are not great. Okay, the next card, then, is going to be the forts. Okay, so our first split pile. The forts were rated pretty low, and I have not played with this one yet at all. Let's just take a look at them. Okay, so you start with the tent. It gives +2 coin, and it's your rotator for this set. When you discard it from play, you can put it on your deck, and I can't think of any reason that you would want to do this, that you would want to put it on your deck. Maybe early in the game, just to like kind of smooth out your 5-cost buys if you get really lucky. But I think like more often than not, that's going to be a very bad effect that you're not going to activate. So I think Tent is actually a pretty lousy card. And the best thing about it is it rotates the fort pile. So that's a little unfortunate. And a lot of the discussion in the Thunder Dominion voting process was about how the split piles kind of come down to this first card a lot of the time. Like who's going to be willing to get a tent for their deck. And I think like one of the big problems with this card in particular is just, or this set of cards in particular, is that tent is so weak. Garrison, 4-cost action duration. It's +2 coin, just like fort or tent. This turn, when you gain a card, add a token here. At the start of next turn, remove them for + card each. Okay, obviously if you've got gainers, this is pretty nice. I don't know what else to say about it, though. That's very, very specific. I think on most turns, if you're just adding one card, all you're getting is a caravan effect out of this, and I think that's just okay. It's just okay. This is a terminal action that you don't really want to be playing when there are terminal actions that do so much more for you. But if you are getting a lot of cards after the garrison, I guess it's pretty strong. I think it's going to be highly variable. It's going to be pretty variable. Hill Fort. So you gain a card costing up to 4, so it's your workshop, 5-cost workshop. then you choose one. You can put it in your hand, or you can get plus card, plus action. I think this card is pretty decent. Okay, obviously, if you've got lots of villages, you want to put 4 costs in your hand and play them right away. That's pretty strong. Um, but yeah, the option to also make this a cantrip is pretty good, I suppose. But I don't know, like, as far as most Ganon players go, I think this one's pretty weak. Like, if you compare it to Sculptor, I think it compares very unfavorably. So I don't know if you would want to invest in the pile just to get Hillfort necessarily. Maybe, maybe. I haven't played with this card yet. I can imagine there are a lot of circumstances where you would get it, but I don't know. I'm not seeing this as a power card myself. But obviously, it's not bad though. I mean, gain and play is good. So if you're able to do that, cool. But I don't know. I'm a little underwhelmed so far. And then Stronghold is a 6 cost action duration victory fort. It's a pretty cool color combo. So it's kind of like Nobles. It's worth 2 VP, and you can choose +3 coins or get 3 cards at the start of your next turn. The 3 cards is the better option, I think. I mean, you're going to take the 3 coins sometimes, but I think if you can get the 3 cards, you should probably take it most of the time. And I think this is the best of the 4 cards, just if I had to guess. Like, Garrison's nice because it's more affordable, I suppose, but Stronghold feels like it would be more important to your deck in the long run. The only problem is it costs 6, which I think is a little bit of a barrier to entry there. But overall, I agree with the forts being pretty low on the list. I don't think I would put them very high, and honestly, I don't like putting them in B tier. Um, yeah, and just because of how things went, that's where they are. But yeah, I'm not really feeling the forts, honestly. Where are they? Let's see, forts. I'm looking for. Okay, down here. Hmm. Yeah, see, like Sycophant being misranked is a big problem. Is a big problem. Oh well, we're just gonna have to leave it out as. Oh, Thunder Dominion. Okay, so next on our list here. See, I lost my list. Hold up. Next on my list is Barbarian. So this has become the new card everyone hates from this set. At least people who haven't played with it too much. Now, personally, I think this card's not all that great. Not all that great at all. So 5 cost action, it's +2 coin. It's an attack. Every other player trashes the top card of their deck. If it costs 3 or more, they get a cheaper card, so it's sort of like Saboteur. It has to be the same type of card. And they get to choose. That's very important. They get to choose what card they're replacing it with. So if it's an action, this is really not that bad because action cards are usually strong. If you hit a gold, I mean, they can get a silver. It's worse, but it's still money. You know, I think this effect is a lot weaker than people think it is when they first see it. Like obviously you're scared of it hitting the province or whatever, but most of the time it's not going to be hitting those things. It's going to be hitting other stuff, and I'm much less scared of it. Maybe because I played a lot of games with Saboteur, I'm not really afraid of it. Anyway, if it's cheaper than 3, they get a curse, and that's pretty nice. It's pretty nice that it can replace stuff with curses. Obviously, like when Swindler does it, that's really strong. So when Barbarian does it, it'll be pretty good. But at 5 costs, it's more barrier to entry than Swindler has. Uh, Overall, like I think this card is decently strong. It's decently strong, but I think like you shouldn't over rely on it. Like if you're relying on Barbarian to win the game for you, I don't think it's necessarily going to do that. It's more like a payload kind of thing. And I understand why. I guess I'm not. I don't want to say newer players, but like a lot of players are afraid of it because it does sound scary. And if you don't want to play with it, I think that's fine. That's what ban lists are for. But I don't know. I'm not scared of it, and it is kind of fun when you're the one playing it. How much damage you can do potentially. So yeah, it's kind of a Timmy card, I guess. Anyway, it's a cute one. I enjoy it. I don't think it's B tier. I would, well, maybe B tier, like low B. I guess this is a decent ranking for it. Um, but I saw some people saying it's the worst card in the set during the rankings, and I can kind of see that. I don't think so though. I don't think so. I think it's like I don't know below some of these for sure. Next up, Importer. here's importer. So duration, at the start of your next turn, you gain a card costing up to 5. So the thing that's been noted about that is that that's very slow. All right. So you buy this importer, right? Then the next shuffle you get to play it, right? And then the next turn you gain the 5 cost card, and you actually haven't even drawn it yet. So yeah, that's a very slow gainer. If that was all importer was, I think it would be considered pretty weak. Like it's still useful because gaining 5s is good, but I think it's really not all that exciting. It's just okay. What's really cool is the setup. Each player gets 4 favors at the beginning of the game. Um, this is really nice with several of the ally cards. Okay, like the trashing one is especially notable, but there are others too, like cave dwellers, where it's really significant to have those extra 4 favors at the start of the game. But yeah, sure, you don't get any more throughout the game, but yeah, it can make a pretty big difference just having those favors right off the bat. Now, I don't think that inherently makes importer better, to be fair. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing that this adds to the game. Kind of like some weird openings, weird just stuff you can do right out the gate. Yeah, overall though, I'm kind of unimpressed with the effect. I think it's just okay. Just okay. But it was ranked this high, so well, we gotta put it here. I think it's more of a C tier, but I don't know. Just my opinion on it. That'll probably change. Alright, Bobble. Bobble, this is one I haven't been super impressed with, but people seem to really like it, and that's nice. At least it's fun, okay? Another liaison. So you get to choose 2 different options, and the options are plus buy, coin, favor, or top decking. So it's a little like pawn, only the effects are totally different. So the plus buy, of course, is very good to have. The favor is also really good, especially depending on the ally. Um, yeah, and it's a little bit hard to evaluate at this point because the set is so new, but I think probably gaining favors is the most significant thing here. Uh, but again, hard to say. Top decking, I've used it a fair number of times. Like sometimes you can't really make use of 2 of the effects that you choose to get with Bobble, and so you just pick the top decking just because. At least that's been my experience with it. Yeah, overall, I think it's pretty good. Um, Average, I guess, is how I would describe it. And that's kind of where it ended up on the list. So, yeah. Yeah, pretty average. Near the middle of the pack, I suppose. All right, the next card on the list is Contract. This is actually a card I really like from the set. Um, I've played with it a couple of times now. I enjoy it. So it's a 5 cost treasure duration. You get 2 coins and a favor. So yeah, nice way to get favors there. Although it's a little slow because it's a 5 cost treasure. It's a little slow getting the favors. Still, it's a way to get them. And you can set aside an action card from your hand and play it at the start of your next turn. Now, delay is a very good event, which does this exact thing. The nice thing here is you don't have to use a buy to do that. You can just do it. So yeah, save an action for next turn that you want to play with your contract, and that's pretty strong right there. And getting the favor on top of that. Now these are 2 very different things, obviously, but it's 2 very nice things that you're getting in addition to the coin. And yeah, overall, I think this card is pretty good. Um, I don't know. I don't know how it's gonna pan out. Like I'm just gonna have to play like hundreds of games with it to say like for sure how strong it is. But I don't think this is a terrible place to put it on the list. Yeah, I mean, I guess like B tier is fine for it. Where is it? There. Yeah, I think it's probably ranked about where it should be, but I just want to say I really enjoy that card. It's one of my favorites in the set, which I was kind of surprised by because it doesn't look like much. All right, next is Guildmaster. This is one I kept ranking at the bottom throughout the voting process, but I'm not really sure how I feel about it. So 5 cost action liaison. It's 3 coins, and this turn when you gain a card, plus 1 favor. Yeah, I mean, obviously I was wrong. So yeah, getting lots of favors is good. So yeah, if you can get a whole bunch of cards, you can get a whole bunch of favors, and some of the favors are really nice to have in bulk. So you want to be doing that, and Guildmaster is a good way to do it. The only problem being it's terminal action, so you're going to need either non-terminal ways to get gains, or you're going to need, villages. So yeah, it definitely requires other stuff in the kingdom for it to be strong. But still, I don't know. If you even if you're just buying one card and getting one favor, that's okay. That's okay. Like I think it's a solid B. Maybe could go a little bit higher depending on just how crucial allies end up being in the long run. Hard to say at this point. Okay, it's going to depend a lot on the game, I think. Let's pick that one up there. What was it, Guildmaster? I'm still getting used to some of these names. Some of them are a little weird, or they're like they don't seem to have much to do with what the card does to me. Why am I having so much trouble finding this one? Is it not here? Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, I would put it in the B tier for now as well. All right, next on the list after Guildmaster is the Auger pile. It's another split pile. Okay, yeah, this is one of the most controversial cards in the set. At least it has been. There's been so much discussion of Herb Gatherer and how weak it is. And to be fair, it's not very good. Now, the first game I played with Augers had supplies in it, which happens to be a very nice combo with Herb Gatherer, but I think in most games it's not going to be that great. So yeah, like here's the big problem with this set is that Herb Gatherer is kind of a risky opening. So it's +5, which is nice, I guess. You put your deck in the discard pile and you look through it for a treasure to play. Then you can rotate the augers. Okay, if you've got a good treasure, great. This actually scales into being better later in the game, which is interesting, but um, also kind of not because you have to discard the deck and that can mess with your shuffle. Nonetheless, I think this is a pretty mediocre effect, all in all. Still, playing treasure in your action phase is always pretty cool. Rotating the augers can be risky because it lets your opponent get the better one. Still, I think like if you need them, then you have to play it. That's just kind of how it is. Next is Acolyte. This one I think is okay. You can trash an action or victory card from your hand for a gold. Then you can trash this to gain an auger. And I think this part where you trash this to gain an auger is the best part here because both of these cards I think are a little bit better than both of these. So that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to gain one of these. Getting a gold on the way, that's pretty nice. Unfortunately, you have to trash a victory or an action to get that gold. You can't trash copper, which would be an ideal scenario. Still, I don't know, getting rid of your estates for gold is it's not horrible or anything. And this only costs 4. But yeah, the fact that it turns into another auger is pretty good, I guess. So Sorceress is your attack here. So you can name a card, reveal the top card of your deck, and put it into your hand. If it was the name card, every other player gains a curse. Notably, you do actually get the card, so this is a cantrip. So that's okay. And if you guess it, they get a curse. So you either have to be pretty good at guessing, or you have to have a card that puts card on top of your deck. Either way, I think this is not so great of a cursor. I think like there's a lot of cases where you just can't guess what the card is going to be, or it's a total crapshoot. Either way, it's slow getting here because you have to rotate this pile twice before you can even get Sorceress. So I don't think this is a particularly strong cursor. It's this is more like just a bonus cursing effect you get. So I think it's actually maybe the weakest card in the pile, which is kind of crazy when Herb Gatherer is here. Um, I might be wrong about that. I'm totally willing to be wrong about that, but I'm not thoroughly impressed by this. Sybil is an interesting one. It costs 6, 4 cards and 1 action, but you have to put a card from your hand on top of your deck and another one on the bottom. So yeah, it's really only drawing 2 cards, and yeah, putting a couple of back. Obviously, you can combo with Sorceress. The fact that it's non-terminal is very good. I would never say this was a bad card. I just think it's not amazing. Like, I don't know if I would want to flip through 3 cards in the Auger pile to get to it. And I think really that's what this kind of comes down to, is that the effects of these cards are just all right. You know, they're all right. I don't know if they're worth the investment, and I'm gonna have to play a lot more games with them and see situations come up where I want all of these cards to really be able to say for sure. So yeah, I think these are pretty average to below average, and that's kind of where they ended up ranked. So let's go ahead and put the Auger pile down. Oh, here it is. Yeah, I think this one's probably misranked. It's probably lower than some of these. Okay, so the next card is Townsfolk, which is another split pile. Here it is. Yeah, these take a while to go over, don't they? Alright, so Townsfolk starts off at pretty decently. I like Town Crier. 2-cost action, and you choose one. You can get 2 coin, you can gain a silver, or you can do card action. All of those are okay to have at the start of the game. And since it has card action, you can keep playing it throughout the game. And you can rotate the townsfolk with it. So this is one of the better rotators to have. So I think like we're getting off to a good start there. Then there's Blacksmith. So you get to pick one. You can draw till you have 6 cards in hands. You can get 2 cards, or you can get card action. So it's always at least neutral. And it's always a pretty decent draw card, all in all, for only 3. This is a pretty good card. Yeah, Blacksmith is strong. I like getting them in a lot of decks. And then there's Miller, which this is a decent card. So it's plus action. Look at top 4 cards on your deck, put 1 in your hand, and discard the rest. So it's a little bit like Border Guard. Technically, like more search space, but it costs more. And there's more of a barrier to getting it. And that's really the only problem with it, I think, is that you have to flip through the piles to get to Miller. And it's a bit underwhelming given that you have to do that. But still, I'll take it over a lot of things, I think. Searching for cards is good. So then there's Elder. So here's the thing about Elder. So it gives you 2 coins, which is one of the more significant parts of it, because it's sort of like a throne room in a way, that gives 2 coins. So I guess like that's the bonus you get compared to Vanilla Throne. So the thing about this though is it only works with cards that have multiple options. All right, and then you can choose an extra one of the options. Yeah, like you can do that with Throne Room already, kind of. And it's hard for me to think of like specific cases where this might be better or more interesting. So I think this is really just kind of an average card. It's kind of an average card. Considering you have to flip through all of these to get to Elder, I think it's just okay. Like you're still going to get it in a fair amount of games, but you're also totally happy with passing it up for Blacksmiths and Millers, I think, a lot of the time, which is a little unfortunate. Still, it's pretty good. Like even just comboing it with Blacksmith is nice. Like you draw up to 6, then draw 2, can potentially be a lot of cards there. Or even this, like card action and 2 coin. And that's not a bad effect on Town Crier there. So I don't know. There's a lot of cards it does combo with, but I wouldn't say like this is an exceptionally powerful card. I think it's just pretty strong. So yeah, I think this pile is average, is how I would evaluate it, and that's kind of where it ended up on the ranking list. So I don't disagree too vehemently with this, but I do think it's quite a bit better than the Auger pile. All right, where is it? Here. Yeah, but still, I think it's only B tier. And by the way, like I'm putting a lot of cards in B, but to me, this is not a bad thing. I like when a set has a lower power level like this. And I could be wrong. Some of these might be better than I think they are, but I'm kind of enjoying that the set isn't just like a bunch of completely overpowered cards. That gets kind of old. Okay, so the next card on the list is Innkeeper. Oops. Yeah, Innkeeper. I think this is a good card. So it's non-terminal, only costs 4, and you get to choose. You can make it a cantrip, you can make it a warehouse, or you can do this new effect, which is plus 5 cards and discard 6. So this, obviously, it's a lot of searching, but it's very risky because it actually reduces your hand size. So by quite a bit there, by discarding 6. So I think this is a very risky effect to be using. You should only be doing it if you're like, if it's absolutely critical you play something. Still, it's nice to have a card that lets you do that. Yeah, and if you don't want to do that, you have these more vanilla effects that you can do with the Innkeeper. So I think this is a very versatile card that'll fit into a whole lot of decks. I think it's actually quite good. Um, yeah, and it's especially good late into the game. Like it scales really well late into the game when you have like extra junk and stuff in your deck, just to filter through to stuff that you need very quickly. And at a cost of only 4, quite strong. So yeah, Innkeeper's good. Innkeeper's good. I think maybe even a little underranked here. I'm gonna put it in the A tier for now, but I might end up moving it down. Like I think it's probably an A tier card. I could be wrong about it. Next is Broker. Yeah, so now I gotta put Innkeeper lower. Yeah, I'm not overly impressed with Broker, but I'm willing to see um, willing to see it grow in my estimation over time. For cost action liaison. So you trash a card from your hand. Obviously, that's good. Um, if it's you get to pick one of these effects. You can do plus card, plus action, plus coin, or plus favor. The card, I mean, it compares kind of to Apprentice, only it's not non-terminal. Action, I mean, it's a crappy village, but it's a village, so you might need it. The coin, I think this effect is pretty basic, but probably effective. It's kind of like Salvager, you know? But the star here is probably getting favors. I mean, I can't really see a way that anything is better than that necessarily. I mean, this is probably the most significant thing here, right? Like, this will help you get your island folk built up, for instance. Um, but like all these effects are okay to good. Uh, nothing too amazing here. Unfortunately, it's trash for benefit, so it's not very good at thinning, say, copper or curse, which you would like it to be. But I don't know. Every card's got to have a weakness, right? Yeah, I think this card is thoroughly okay. I would put it in the thoroughly okay camp. Like there's some boards where this stuff is going to be amazing, and then there's some where it really just doesn't matter all that much, and I'm just going to ignore the pile. But at 4, there's not much to complain about. Okay, so I'm going to move Innkeeper down for now because I really can't see myself putting Broker higher than B tier, at least not at the time being. Next is Skirmisher. All right, so this was one of the first cards we saw. It's a cantrip, it gives a coin, so it's a peddler. And if you gain an attack card this turn, other players have to discard down to 3. So it's kind of nice that a militia effect is limited in this way. You have to either keep buying skirmishers or buy other attacks to get it to work. Obviously, getting hit by a militia attack is not good, but it might not last the entire game, especially if skirmisher is the only attack card in the kingdom. And if you are buying skirmishers, you're not buying cards that do more important things for your deck. So I don't think it's an overly strong card. I think it's just kind of average, and I like that. I like that it's not a completely broken card or anything like that. Yeah, I think it's pretty good, and you're probably going to get it most games, but nothing to write home about, really. So where is it? Yeah, another B tier, I think. So which one's next? Oh, the Odyssey pile. So Odyssey, even though this one came out, I think the second day of previews, I still haven't played with it. Still haven't played it. Well, maybe I played one game with it. Um, so yeah, this is kind of like completely hot takes from me. 3 cost action. So old map. This is a pretty decent card. Basically, it's like Oasis a little bit. Well, no, not really. So you do card and action. You discard a card and draw a card. Um, so yeah, that's pretty cute. It's pretty cute. It's a fake lab. It doesn't really draw you a card. And you can rotate the Odysseys with it. Decent rotator. Not a terrible card to open with. You're going to open with it over a lot of things. I think it does at least search through cards. Voyage is the next card, and this is maybe the most interesting card here. plus action. And if the previous turn wasn't yours, you can take an extra turn after this one, where you can only play 3 cards. So the cool thing about this is you can stack them, allowing you to get lots of additional turns. Now, they're very limited additional turns. You can only play 3 cards from your hand, which means you gotta make them count. But the more significant thing is if you've got other effects going on that you can do in a 3-card play turn, then Voyage becomes really, really good. And it also just lets you kind of cycle through a bunch of cards. So it's a pretty neat card. I don't think it's overpowered in any way. Maybe with some cards, there's some decent combos there that make it overpowered, but most of the time, this is just kind of an interesting effect, I think. And it kind of remains to be seen what power combos await with it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to discovering cool stuff. I think it's a neat card. I'm glad it's here. Sunken Treasure, 5-cost treasure, and it lets you gain an action card that you don't have a copy of in play. This is obviously very good for gaining actions. Not too much to say. And one nice thing about it is on voyage turns, when you don't have a lot of cards you can play anyway, this is a great one because you can just gain an action with it. Okay, so yeah, pretty decent there. Decent card to have. Distant Shore. I think this card is very good. So it's a lab where you gain an estate, and it's worth 2 VP. Yeah, that's pretty nice. I mean, we've seen with some cards like Groom and I don't know, Wayfarer, sometimes getting these sort of junk cards, but also getting a good effect is totally worth it. And yeah, I don't think it's better than either of those cards, obviously, but I think this is going to have its places. I think it's a pretty good card. It's a nice way to rack up points. I guess you could use it with Voyage as well, to at least get some extra victory on your turn. So nice little set of cards here. I like them a lot. I think this is probably an A tier, but maybe it could be high B as well. Yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and stick it in the A tier for now. I might change my mind. I'm going to have to play with it a lot to be sure about everything there. Okay, let's pull up the list again here. Okay, next is Carpenter. This is an interesting one. So if there's no empty supply piles, then this is a non-terminal workshop. Okay, which is interesting. Non-terminal workshop. So it's like Ironworks, I guess. Only you can also gain silver non-terminally with it. So it's a little different from that. But if supply piles are empty, then it becomes a remodel. You trash a card and gain a card costing up to 2 more. I don't have too much to say about it. I think this is very good. This is very good. It's a workshop when you really want it to be, and then it's a remodel late game, which is when remodel is probably at its best. So yeah, overall it's pretty strong. Like obviously it's limited because if a pile empties early or something, you can't use it for gaining, but I don't think that's too big of a weakness, and it might even be a strength of it. So hard to say. Yeah, I think it's an A tier card. It's maybe overrated on the list, but I think it's quite strong. I think it's quite strong. I don't know. I'm gonna have to play more games with it to see, but I think it's good, especially like at 4 costs. That's a pretty good card right there. All right, next is Underling. This is one of the hardest cards to evaluate here. It's just a cantrip that gives you a favor. It depends on how good the what do you call it, the ally is in your kingdom. I think with some of them, you're really going to want to rack them up, and Underling is a nice way to do that. With some of them, you don't care that much, and you don't even buy Underling. So, yeah, it's hard to say exactly how strong this card is. I think it evens out to being average to above average, but yeah, like obviously in some kingdoms, it's going to be really important, and it's very easy to stock up on them, which is nice, only costing 3. So, yeah, A tier is fine for now. I could see it being B. Modify. Just like as a minor note, I guess, really allies throw a wrench in this whole ranking process because these cards are so dependent on what the ally in the kingdom is. It really changes what they are a lot, and I like that, but it makes them hard to rank. Okay, modify. Here's another remodeler. 5-cost action. It's you trash a card from your hand, and then you can either do a cantrip effect or you can remodel. I found this card to be very good so far. You can just play it as remodel when you need it. or if you just want to use it as a thinner, that's fine too. It's a little bit worse as a thinner because it doesn't give you anything. It's just a cantrip. But you know what? That's fine. That's fine. When it's also a remodel on top of that, it's kind of a vanilla card, but I don't know, it's moderately useful a lot of the time. Um, Occasionally very good. Okay, it's a very good curse trasher because yeah, getting a cantrip effect out of that is pretty nice. But obviously the star here is going to be the remodel late in the game. Yeah, overall I like it a lot. Not too much to say about it. It looks like cards that we've already had for a long time, but there's nothing wrong with that. It's good. So next at the town pile. Have I played? Oh no, town is not a pile. Town is just town. What am I talking about? Yeah, town. So this one's probably overrated, but whatever. I think it's still pretty good. So you choose one. It's either a village or a woodcutter. Obviously, you want this whole pile, but it's not like there's anything exciting about it. Like if you're just buying it to be a village, then I mean it's an expensive village. Occasionally getting to use it as woodcutter, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. It's decently strong. I think it's worse than Workers Village, which gives you a little of both. Um, but you know, still going to be an A tier vanilla bread and butter card that you're going to want a lot of. Where is it? I mean, like one of the big advantages it has over Village, I suppose, is just that you can threaten in game with it, and you can't do that with regular Village. So, yeah, it's A tier. Next is going to be Hunter. Hunter, we're still not. I feel like we're still not entirely sure how good this is. I mean, it's obviously good. It's just a question of if is it super good. Okay, so it's non-terminal draw. You reveal 3 cards from the top of your deck, and you put an action, treasure, and victory into your hand. Now, notably, there's some cards that just can't draw, like night cards and curses, and some of the shelters, or just hovel, I guess. But yeah, I mean, if you have a decent balance of those kinds of cards in your deck, then Hunter is good draw. I just think, like on the whole, it's probably worse than Seer, and it's probably gonna be worse than Lab a lot of the time. Like in an action-heavy deck, you'd rather have Lab. But if you got a good mix in your deck, then I think Hunter is perfectly fine. Like it's a solid draw card. It's probably B tier, but it wasn't ranked there. So we're just gonna stick it where it got ranked for now. But I would probably put it a little bit lower than this, maybe around here. All right, next on the list, Wizards. So Wizards are another split pile, and an interesting one. If I can find them. Okay, here it is. So I I've played with this a couple of times, but I'm going to admit that the times I played with it, I was misreading Student and I didn't understand exactly what it was doing. And this pile looked a lot worse to me than it actually is. So here's the thing. So Student, it's non-terminal and you can rotate the wizards. All right. What it does is it trashes from your hand, and if you trashed a treasure, you get a favor. Okay, and you have to put this back on your deck. And I missed this putting it back on your deck thing. Okay, so the thing about Student is if you're getting the favors with it, this does cripple your economy quite a bit because you're trashing copper early on, and you're repeatedly doing so because the student keeps getting top deck. Um, so you want to watch out for that. Make sure you've got cheap stuff that you can purchase, or maybe thin estates and don't worry about the favors right away. I don't know. You got to kind of think about what you're doing there. Interesting little opener there. I think it's pretty good. I'm just misplaying it. So once I get better with it, I think I'll come around to this being a pretty strong card. But yeah, there you go. It's not brain dead. You got to think about it. So Conjurer is the first card you can get out of this. So you gain a card costing up to 4, and at the start of your next turn, you put this into your hand. And by this, I believe it means the Conjurer. So yeah, you can just keep playing Conjurer over and over. Now, it is a terminal action, so you have to have space for that, I suppose. But it's pretty cool that you can keep playing it over and over again if you want to. I don't know how good it is, though. I think it's just okay. Just okay. I mean, there's going to be some boards where it's amazing, but I think usually it's just alright. The art is amazing though. Wow. Sorcerer. So yeah, Sorcerer's a pretty bad card. So, but it is funny. So it's like Sorceress a little card action. Each other player names a card and reveals the top card of their deck. If they're wrong, they get a curse. Haha. The only thing is you can't stack this. If they guess right, if they guess right, or they know what the top card is, um, then they're just going to keep guessing the right one over and over again. And so this can only curse once. So it's really not amazing. You don't want more than one of them unless you got some kind of combo where you discard their stuff. Then it's pretty good in multiples. But that's going to be pretty rare. So I think this is actually a very weak card, even though it's funny. Then there's Lich. Uh, Lich is +6 cards, +2 action, and skip a turn. Whether this is worth it or not is highly up to debate. There's a combo with Odyssey there, which is obviously good. But I think a lot of the time this is not worth it at all. However, at the end of the game, on your final turn, this is very good. Very good. It's a great mega turn enabler. And there's probably plenty of times when it is valuable to skip a turn. I just can't really think of them off the top of my head. So when you trash it, you can discard it and gain a cheaper card from the trash. I don't really have too much to say about this. I think like there's going to be some situations where there's something in the trash that you want, but a lot of times this is maybe just not notable. I don't know. Like I really haven't wrapped my head around that trashing effect. I want to say it doesn't come up that often, but I could just be dead wrong about that. Overall, though, I think this pile is pretty good, but I don't know about A tier. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it is. It seems like some of these effects are just kind of like you want one of these and not the rest of them. I'm gonna have to see it played a lot more to feel like they're all working together, because I kind of feel like they don't fit together all that well. That might be a weakness of the pile. Still, it does. There are a lot of things here in the wizard pile, so it's not like it's horrible. So yeah, well. Obviously, I have to put it in the A tier here because that's where it was ranked. But I don't know. I'm not really on board with it. We'll have to see. I do like the cards quite a bit though. I think they're interesting. My favorite set is Nocturne, and similarly, it has a lot of cards that are interesting but not overly powerful. So here's the next card on the list is Emissary. Okay, and I thought this one was pretty good. I'm not so sure about it anymore, but maybe. Okay, so it's a smithy, but if it made you shuffle at least one card, you get an action and 2 favors. So you can keep playing cards, and you get the 2 favors. Obviously, favors are quite good, but the thing about this card is on a fresh shuffle, it's not all that great. You want to be playing it like in the middle of a shuffle, or if there are cards to draw. And there are ways to make that happen, and I think in those situations you want Emissary because getting those favors and getting to continue playing your deck is very, very good. But I think if you're just buying it as a smithy, this is just okay. Like, you'll take it because it's draw, but yeah, but what you really want to do is get this bonus, and if you can, I think this is a very good card. If you can't, it's just kind of average. So I don't really see this as an A tier anymore, even though I was originally voting for it pretty high. But we're just going to have to see how things play out. I think it's more like a B tier. Still, it's there. Okay. Oh, what's next? Okay, Marquis? Is it Marquis or is it Marcus? I've heard both. I've always said Marquis because there's a character in Final Fantasy Tactics who is like the Marquis Elmdor, I believe. So, I don't know. However you want to pronounce it is fine. 6 cost action. It's plus buy, and you get a card per card in your hand, and you discard down to 10. So it's kind of like Fortune, but for draw. Now, discarding down to 10 is pretty funny. But you know what? A 10 card hand is pretty good, though. Like, at the end of the day, having 10 cards in your hand is great, even if you had to discard to get there. So I think overall this is very strong. It's very strong, and it gives you buy, and we know from the past, like with Wharf and Barge and cards like that, that buy plus draw is just very strong. It's very strong. So It's limited, like you can't go too nuts with it, but I think having one of these in your deck is going to be very good. And not much else to say about it. I think it's a strong card, A tier. Haven't played with it yet, though. I'll say that. All right, next is Highwayman. So Highwayman, at the start of your turn, you discard it from play and you get 3 cards. It's kind of interesting that this is at the top of the card. So it doesn't actually do anything when you play it. However, on your opponent's turn, the first treasure they play does nothing. Now, so I thought this was going to be the most significant part of the card, because it just seems like it would be, and it is significant. You know, you can kind of just play it every turn, since it discards from play at the beginning, and that's pretty cool. You don't have to buy an extra draw card. But what I've found is actually that this treasure effect is sneakily good, especially if they've thinned out their copper and they have to give up a good treasure on their turn. And this is very strong a lot of the time. So yeah, I think overall this ends up being a good card. It's draw and it has a pretty powerful attack. There's maybe some games where it's weak, but where the attack is weak, but at least it's always draw. It's delayed draw, but draw nonetheless. Yeah, I think this is a pretty good overall card. I would put it kind of in the low A tier, but we're gonna have to see how things turn out. See how things turn out. I don't think it's an S tier, but it's an interesting card, and I think it's definitely very good. Okay, Capital City is next. There's another one I haven't played with yet. Okay, I am interested in it though. It's 5-cost village. So you can discard 2 cards for 2 coins. And you can pay 2 coins for 2 more cards. Now, notably, you can do both of these things. So, yeah, you can keep the money if you want to, or you can do the storyteller thing and give up that money for 2 extra cards. And I think more often than not, you're going to want to do the draw, because yeah, if you're reading it, right, this is saying like 1 card, this is actually like plus 3 cards, plus 2 actions, but you do have to discard 2. I think that's very good. To get the village on top of that effect is very, very strong. I don't think it's S tier, but this is a really, really nice village. I think it's very interesting. And I think more often than you'll expect, you're probably going to just want to keep the coin. It's sort of like mill. But yeah, still like the draw is it's got to be pretty good, I think. It's got to be pretty good. Yeah. I don't know if it's like top whatever in the set that it is currently. Like, how's it ranked? It's number 6 currently. I don't know if it's that high, but it's definitely a very good card. I'm looking forward to playing some games with it and seeing for myself. Okay, next, Specialist. Specialist, I think this is one of the cards that's arguably S tier. So 5 costs, you play an action or a treasure card from your hand. That's nice, right? It can do action or treasure in your buy phase. And then you can choose one. You can play it again, so you can throw it, or you can gain a copy of it. So basically a weaker Disciple, but Disciple is really, really good. And notably, if you play Elder with this, you can do both of them. So that's cool. But yeah, Specialist, I think obviously Throne Room is good. The option to do it on treasure is even better. But the option to gain a copy if you don't want to play it twice, yeah, that's also really nice. So this card just gives you lots of options. I think I'm going to go ahead and put it in the S tier. I haven't played too much with it, but obviously it's been pretty strong in the games I've played with it. And I think like it's one of these cards that's just going to scale more and more. The more you play with it, the more you're going to find to do with it. So yeah, it seems like it should be an S tier to me. Next is Royal Galley, which I'm not sure this one's S tier. I have actually played it. I keep rolling it for some reason in my games, so I've played with it a good bit. I think it's decently strong. So the nice thing about it is it only costs 4, and it gives you this plus card, and it's subtle, but that plus card matters because it gives you more options. So you can play non-duration action from your hand and set it aside. If you did, at the start of your next turn, play it. So it's like a throne split across 2 turns. So it's a little like Captain, and Captain, of course, is ridiculously strong. I think it's a decent bit weaker than Captain since you can't pick something from the supply to play, but it's still very, very good. I don't know about S tier. Still, starting your next turn with an action card is great, especially if it gives you extra actions or draw. And most cards will give you at least one of those things. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know about S tier. That's where it was ranked, in my opinion, but I could also see it at A. Very good card nonetheless. Very interesting one. And the fact that you can load up on them makes it kind of like Herald, I guess. It's a card you just kind of want a lot of. Um, what's next? We got 3 left. 3 left, and then I'm going to take a break and do the rest of these another day. Sentinel. So Sentinel, 3 cost action. You look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You can trash up to 2 of them, put the rest back in any order. So just right out the gate, this guy looks like the Shredder. I'm just throwing that out there. Okay. Second, right out the gate, this is obviously good. Only costs 3. It's a trasher. You can do it at the start of the game, really get your deck moving. Has advantages over Sentry, some disadvantages. The fact that it's terminal action isn't great, but you know what? Still got a pretty powerful effect. I got in a little debate with a few people over it. I kind of err on the this isn't that great side, but still it's probably an S tier at the end of the day because it's a card that you could use so well at the beginning of the game, and then it's still pretty good later on. Pretty good later on, since you can continue to trash cards. Unfortunately, you can't discard things later in the game, but you can thin out stuff you don't need anymore. Nonetheless, like I think the beginning of the game is where it shines, or if you're under attack, this is a pretty good curse trasher because it has a pretty big search range for the curses at 5 cards. Yeah, I don't have really anything bad to say about it. It's a good card. It's definitely S tier. I just don't know like if it's low or high S currently. We'll have to see. I will say in the one game I've played with it, I was playing against a guy using Ambassador and I won with Sentinel. So there's a data point. All right, number 2. Okay, I think almost everyone agrees at this point that this is a misrank and this card should be number 1. And I think this is one of the most powerful Kingdom cards in Dominion. I mean this whole set. Clashes is ridiculous. Okay, like a bunch of these split piles are just okay or they have questionable value, but I feel like all of these cards are good. So Battle Plan is an amazing opening. All right, you can it's a cantrip. You can reveal an attack from your hand for an extra card. This is so good. It is so good, and there are attacks right here in this pile for you to get. Look at that. But you could have any attack with this and get that extra card. 3-coin lab, and all you need is an attack in hand? Crazy. And like, especially once your deck is thinned out and the game is moving, you're just going to be getting this every turn. Wow. What an investment. Like, this is a great card. Archer is the next card. It's 2 coins. Each other player with 5 or more cards in hand reveals all but one, discards one of those that you choose. Okay, so they can keep one of their cards safe, but then you get to pick a card from their hand to discard. And so many discard effects, you don't get any choice in what you do. This one actually lets you pick what to discard, and that's just so good. It's so good. Like Pillage, if Pillage wasn't as limited as it was, it would be a card you buy every game. And yeah, Archer is a card I want in almost every kingdom that it's available, because that's just a strong effect. It's so amazing. Like, it's very, very oppressive. This Warlord. This card is also nuts. It's non-terminal. At the start of your next turn, plus 2 cards, so it's like Enchantress, right? Until then, other players can't play an action from their hand that they have 2 or more copies of in play. Okay, and this is, like, the other cards were good, but this is the reason this pile is insane. Look at how much control that gives you over the game. It prevents people from playing engines, right? Okay, if they have 2 copies of a card in play, they can no longer play any more of them. That's ridiculous. Like, okay, if they have 3 villages, well, now they can only play 2. Those other ones are just dead in their hand. Um, Yeah, like, and there's a whole lot of cards that this hurts. Magpie really gets shut down by Warlord. Um, yeah, I think this card maybe is a little bit broken. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it ends up not being that bad, but it really makes you second guess what you're doing in the game. I think I will say this in multiplayer, like with 3 and 4 players, I think this card is not as good because you can't even get access to as many of cards from an individual pile there. But in 2 player, this card just seems incredibly good to me. Um, yeah, and it draws on top of that. It draws on top of the attack. Wow, so good. Okay. And then there's territory, which is a pretty good victory pile. It's worth a point per differently named victory card you have, which in a normal game, that means this could be up to 3 points. So not great, but if there's any alt VP at all, then suddenly this becomes quite strong. Quite strong. It only costs 6, and you can get 4 VP from it. Yeah, that's very good. Plus, when you gain this, you get a gold per empty supply pile. And I think in a lot of games there might not be supply piles, but if there are, then this just becomes even better. Becomes even better because if you're adding victory to your deck, you also probably want to be adding money in a lot of games. So yeah, overall, I think this pile is just crazy good. To me, this is like the clear #1 in the set, but it wasn't ranked that way the first time. Um, yeah, nonetheless, it's definitely S tier. But the card that was ranked first when we did these rankings was Swap. And I also think this is S tier, for the record. So, card in action, you can return an action card from your hand to its pile to gain to your hand a different action card costing up to 5. So people have kind of like labbed out ways you can basically end the game in a turn with swaps, and that's cool. But more, I guess, just more generally speaking, this card lets you get whatever you need whenever you want. Just trade an action card from your hand for something you need right now. It's just obviously very useful and can apply into like to so many situations. You can also refill piles that were threatened if you need to, which I think is a kind of a niche case for swap, but still something that's there. The fact that it's a cantrip and has this effect is just really, really good. Plus, remember, it's adding the card to your hand, so you can play it right away if you need to. You know, like you need a lab right now? Cool, get it. You need, I don't know, you need to gain an attack right now to hit someone? Sure, go for it. You know, the world's your oyster there. Swap can do all kinds of things for you. I do think this card is very, very good. I could see it maybe dropping down to A, but I feel like the potential for this thing is insane, and I would definitely rank it at S just personally. And I agree with it being like in the top 5 of the set. I just don't really think it's #1. That's the only thing. Still, I think it's a good call putting it near the top. Okay, and there we go. There are the action kingdom cards. I guess they're not all actions, but yeah, there's the kingdom cards from Allies. Hot Take Edition. This ranking was done right when the set came out, so it's very obviously going to be wrong in the long term. But this is what people thought right when it came out. You know, just for history, I'm putting it out there. I agree with some of the takes. I don't agree with other ones, and it'll be interesting to see how this changes as time passes. Uh, at some point, if people want me to do it, I'll look over the allies, but to be perfectly honest, um, it's a little hard evaluating them at this point. Still, I can at least show the ranking later. But I'm going to stop here for now and go ahead and put this up. Hope you enjoyed viewing,